Dear reader, for anyone who has found this note, I write this just so that someone may find out what the hell happened to me. If I'm dead, then heed these words, but if I'm alive, I hope someone will come looking for me. And if not, then at least there will be a story to tell. The story I'm about to tell you now is an all real matter. No matter how strange it may sound, no matter how crazy it comes off as. I'll start from the beginning, to the time when I moved to this new town. It was sort of small, but the people there seemed nice enough, but how could I put it? There was just something off. Thinking about it now, I know exactly what it is, but back then I just, I couldn't figure it out. The move was sort of rough, I had to leave behind a lot of my friends. But when I first started to attend school here, I had to keep to myself mostly. But as the next few months passed, I broke out of that shell and began to talk to people. I made some new friends, made a new life here, and it wasn't turning out as bad as I thought it would be. When I started to attend high school, I had totally let go of that feeling. There was something strange about this town. And since then, the small town, the high school, had, I think, about roughly only 200 students. My freshman year and the first half of my sophomore year went by with really nothing much to note. As the second semester of the sophomore year began, I got put into this class with a girl named Jessie. She just moved to this town from Illinois. Seeing her the first time, I thought I grew an attraction to her. So as the year went by, I talked to her more and more and more until I got the guts up to ask her out. You see, before this time, I didn't have a girlfriend or anything, so to do this, I had some pretty bad anxiety. I waited till lunch, and as we were eating, I asked her, and to my greatest relief, she said yes. After that day, we were with each other most of the time. We thoroughly enjoyed being with each other. We would walk around the town and get all looks from the townsfolk that made us a little embarrassed, since it was a small town and everybody knew everyone, so information like this just spread fast. Jesse and I would go up to the top of the hill just outside of town, and it towered just above the town and looked over a vast countryside that laid outside of the town. And on top of this hill, there was just this one small little tree. I would sit up against it, with her leaning against me. It was a place where the two of us could just be alone together. We would go there as the sun was setting, and the sight was beautiful. As I said it, I would feel her soft lips press against mine. And as we kissed, I would run my hand through her long, delicate brown hair. To me, those were the best moments of my life. Sitting alone on that hill with her just filled me with a feeling that words can't express or describe. As the summer started, I was struck with the horrible news one of my father had died in a car accident just outside of town. I didn't care about the details. I was just so distraught over the fact that I'd never see my father again. That day I stayed inside my house. I never left my room and just laid in my bed all day. Cried, slept, cried some more. That night I received a text. It was from Jessie. She told me that she wanted to meet me on top of the hill. We never went up there this late, so I found it strange. I got up and left my house, quietly as to not wake up my mother. When I got to the top of the hill, I saw Jessie standing under the tree alone. I walked over to her and she turned to me. I heard, "I'm sorry." She muttered slowly, looking down at the ground with a glum look on her face. "You don't have to feel sorry. It was an accident," I said, looking at the countryside. And it was when I felt her hand touch my cheek, I turned to her and she kissed me gently. I held her close in a warm and caring embrace. This was a night I could never forget. Can never forget. The silver strands of moonlight playing off of her elegantly smooth skin. The labored and heavy breaths. And that feeling of joy. We both fell asleep on that hill that one night, all alone, but just the two of us in each other's arms. When the next school year started, the pain of loss had dampened and I returned back to my normal self. That year, the school got another new student, and his name was Ramon. He seemed to look like he never got much sleep, and he looked pretty pale all the time, which was a bit strange to me. And, like when I first started school, he was quiet and withdrawn. I guess in a sense, this is why I approached him and tried to make friends with him. I tried talking to him, he just stared awkwardly at me. I tried talking to him, but he gave me nothing but incomprehensible utterances and discernible grunts. I never really tried to talk with him after that. I just assumed that he was one of those people that, preferred to stay alone. So, something strange began to happen. I noticed that Ramon was following me. It was quite subtle at first. He would walk the same way at home as me, or he would be in the same hallway as me, or he would be in a completely same direction as me. Now that I would have not minded this, but he had totally different classes than me and lived completely opposite ways of my house. Well, this was unsettling. I was able to put it back into my mind at some ignorance. Besides, I was too busy being with Jessie to care about some weirdo following me around. But one day when Jessie and I were out at our usual spot, I saw him. He was standing at the bottom of the hill behind us. I didn't know it was him at first, but after some time I began to make out the distinctions. The most bizarre thing, however, was the fact that he was just standing there, unmoving, watching us. The most weird thing I've ever saw. Just standing there, completely still and watching us, unmoving. No, he was watching me, and his eyes were constantly fixated on me, never moving. Jessie would ask, and I would turn to her for a moment and look back to where Ramon should be, and I noticed he was gone. One night as I was laying in my bed, I got a call. It was from Jessie. She sounded terrified and her voice was stuttering. She told me that outside her window was a man. She told me he was just standing there watching her, but every few minutes when she took her eye off of him, just for a split second, he would come closer. I knew it had to be him. I told her to stay calm and make sure every window and door of her house was locked and that I was coming over. I rushed out of my house and sprinted for Jessie's home. When I arrived there, I called her again and she picked up and yelled that he was gone. She had taken her eyes off of him for 2 seconds and he disappeared. I could tell she was freaking out when there was a sudden bang I heard in the background, followed by her screaming. She told me that he was banging on her bedroom window. So I quickly rushed around the house to her bedroom window, and then I'm standing there, hitting the window in every rhythm. Hey, I called out to him, slowly and ever slowly, quite calmly. He turned to me and just looked with a tilted, melancholy gaze. His eyes were stone as they bore into me. Listen, I don't care if you follow me, but leave her the fuck out of this. I yelled out to him, loud and harsh. Ramon placed his fingernails on the brick of the wall of the house and dragged them across it in a slow, mild manner as he walked towards me. I could tell the brick was beginning to tear off as his nails, as he got closer to me. She has been marked, the same as you have been marked. His voice was emotional and quiet. I took a few steps back from him. The fear I had imagined. I had tried to keep him in the back of my mind, but now it was creeping up to me. There was something very wrong with Ramon. My hands began to tremble, a cold sweat that dripped down from my forehead to the nape of my neck. Never have I seen anything so terrifying. Slow, steady steps. Each sort of ominous feeling. What do you mean? I finally tried to ask. My voice not sounding anywhere near as threatening as before. Ramon took his hand off the wall and clenched his hand into a fist. The blood leaked out of his ball of fist and into the grass, painting it crimson. Even if I told you, you would never understand. Let's just say that you were chosen, and that is all. You were chosen to participate in a grand event. Everyone who mattered to you has been marked. You should feel honored. This doesn't make any sense. Please, just leave Jessie alone. You say I was the chosen one, then only stalk me and not her, please. There's no need to bring anyone else into this. I just tried to reason with him, but it felt like I was not even talking to a human. That gripping fear was just slowly rising from my stomach, and Ramon just frowned. Sorry, but that's just not possible. Some of this world are born to endure pain, and you just happen to be one of them. Ramon sighed in a deep, depressed manner, then walked right back into the darkness of the night. That night I slept with Jessie. It made both of us feel more secure, and thankfully, for Ramon, he didn't come back. The next week went by surprisingly normal. I could not have been happier to finally have my life back the way it was. There was no stalking or midnight scares for the rest of the summer. Once the summer ended, it was time for a new semester of school. Walking to school that first day with Jesse, I had completely forgotten about Ramon. As we separated to go to our classes, he was the last thing to come to my mind. As I was going to my class, I suddenly felt someone grab me from behind and drag me out of the hall and into the boys' restroom. I was thrown onto the ground and hit my head on the cold tile flooring behind. From behind me, I felt my arms get tied up. When I finally realized what was happening, I noticed I was tied to the bathroom stall. Laying next to me was Jessie. She was tied up as well. Our eyes were filled with terror as we looked up at the familiar face. Ramon stood right there in front of us. A sleek, malicious grin came to his face. I noticed the door to the bathroom was blocking some janitor equipment, and since classes just started, I doubt anyone would come here for quite some time. He had an hour to do whatever he wanted with us. What the hell do you want? I tried yelling to hide the fear I felt inside. It's not what I want. It's what they want. They want you to sacrifice, that is all. They want you to feel the intense pain you were meant to. Today's the day your sacrifice will begin. Ramon ran his nails across Jessie's forehead, and then he grabbed her by the throat and dragged her away from me. I struggled against my bindings as I tried to get to her. Leave her alone. God damn it, please, just leave her alone. Do what you want with me, just please, I'm begging you, don't hurt her. And it seemed my pleas fell on deaf ears. Ramon grabbed her brutally by the hair and began to rip her clothes off. I watched him, helpless to stop him. Screaming at the top of my lungs, I begged him, pleaded with him to stop. He didn't listen. No, he enjoyed watching me struggle. Jessie yelled for him to let her go, and she struggled against it, but he just beat her until she became submissive. Hot tears were pouring from my eyes as I continued yelling at him to stop, hopelessly. Then it happened, right in front of me, and I was powerless to stop it. Her agonizing screams filled the air with each harsh thrust. Her face twisted with pain as she looked back at me and told me not to watch. Soon her face just went blank, and she silently accepted what was happening. When he finished, he just got up and left her lying naked on the ground. I thought he was done, but he was still seeking to hurt me even more without touching me a bit. Grabbing Jessie by the neck, he dragged her to the stall behind me. I yelled with my raspy voice at that point for him to stop, even though I knew whatever I said didn't matter. Her first smashed clean and loud. It was just the sound of something hard hitting the porcelain of the toilet bowl. I could hear Jessie's painful sobbing behind me. She was apologizing to him. I meant smashing, getting hit with a blunt object. The smashes after that just elaborated on the sound of more and more like meat. Like with each smash, it just sounded like a pile of meat being stomped on. I looked down and I noticed Jessie's lukewarm blood seep past my body and form a pool around me. Ramon came out to face me. I knew good and well what he did. I just heard so much inside. It felt like my heart had sunk down to my stomach and was being stabbed repeatedly over and over. Ramon pulled the knife from his pocket and held it into my throat. In that instance, all the pain and sadness had turned into pure, vicious rage. I bit his hand hard and kicked him into the groin and sent him falling down on top of me. My hand on his head forced him to let go of the knife. Then I released his hand and bit it hard into his throat. I could feel his flesh start to give way, and I could taste his warm blood pour into my mouth. Ramon screamed in agony with a loud, annoying scream. Why was he yelling? What has he done to deserve to yell like this? I began to think to myself. I ripped a chunk of flesh from his neck after spitting it out and biting into his neck again. He let out another high-pitched screech. He yelled for me to stop. Such a pitiful voice. He told me it wasn't his fault, that they forced him to do it. I ripped out more and more flesh and just spit it onto the ground. No, you're just a fucking psychopath. They don't exist. They are just a sad excuse you made up to try and justify your sick, deprived, sad ways. You don't deserve any mercy. I won't stop. Do you hear me? Not until your body lies in a puddle of blood in front of me. Not until I see all the life fade from your fucking eyes. Do you understand me? I bit into the now massive hole I made into his throat. I could feel the bone, and I bit furiously into it. His screams filled the room and only made me bite down harder and harder. I enjoyed hearing him suffer. After ripping my mouth from his neck, I kicked him away onto the ground. I just dropped the heel of my foot onto his neck, again and again and again, just stomping. And even after it stopped cracking, it just made a sick, crunching sound. I continued. Some minutes later, the door to the restroom was busted open, and police officers and some teachers came in. Their eye widened when they saw the bloodbath that had taken place. My life since then has been nothing but a lull. I have been at home for the past few weeks, kept in my room. I don't know why I'm kept here, but they do not let me leave. They give me food and water, but when they do it with 3 people to ensure that I cannot leave. Each day they administer a drug that I think is beginning to take away my will to really want to do anything. I haven't seen my mother in days either. I'm leaving these notes in the room for when they inevitably take me out of here. Maybe the next person who's to reside in this room will be able to find out what's going on. Maybe somebody will be able to find me. Maybe somebody will understand what's going on. Because I would love to know myself. All I ask is that if you find these notes, I beg of you to figure out what's going on. This town is hiding something. I was ignorant of it before, which just led to this, but you may be able to figure out what I couldn't find out. I ask that you only do it, not for my sake only, but for Jesse's too. But be careful. It is dark. That's all I can tell. It's dark. Oh, I hear them coming. It seems it's time for my medication. Whoa. Would you look at that? Throughout the entire thing, and not once have I written my name. Oh, it's